What's going on, guys, and welcome to Who to Sign For. Now in this series I'm giving you my recommendations on what players to sign for a specific team in career mode. But before we go on, I will say that the signings you'll see aren't designed to be realistic, and the player ratings and potentials of the players may vary depending on what database you're using and how they perform for you during the season. Obviously you don't have to follow all the tips. This is really just a set of guidelines to give you a hand if you're stuck for ideas and want some suggestions on what players you could sign for a certain club. This is mainly aimed at those you out there who may be new to the game and just need a little bit of advice, or for those you out there who just want a few recommendations on what players to sign for a team that you may be using in career mode this year. So yes, in today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys, we're going to take a look at Portsmouth. That's right, Pompey of League One in England, playing their football at Fratton Park. Now Portsmouth start off with a budget of around £1.8 million, but with wage budget alteration it's more likely to be around £2.3 to £2.5 million in the first season, so pretty decent for a League One side. And their objectives in the first season at Fratton Park are as what you would expect them to be. Gain automatic promotion from League One to the Championship, avoiding the playoffs and going up as one of the top two, and reaching around the 32 of the FA Cup. So two objectives there, which you probably would imagine is most realistic with Portsmouth based on how they've performed this season in real life and the team they've got as well. So Portsmouth team, as we take a look at here, they line up in a 4-2-3-1, and I have to pay them a big compliment as well in this year's career because they've got a really youthful team as well. Now it's not stacked with players that have got like world-class potential, if you will, but it is still a very young team regardless. There are only two players here that are in their 30s, and I believe they're both strikers, Brett Pittman and another as well, whose name is currently escaping me. But yeah, got two players in their early 30s. Everyone else is in their 20s or a teenage talent as well. You will notice they've got four players that are currently loaned in right now, including Ross McCrory from Rangers, and they've got 8 players that deals to come at the end of the year. I'd recommend giving 2 contracts, one to Brandon. This is a left back with some decent potential, and possibly Matt Casey as well. That's up to you. But this guy right here, Hadji, not sure how you pronounce that surname, but Hadji, he's a right back with 77 potential. He's got more potential than any other player in the Portsmouth team. So whilst his overall is very poor to begin with 77 potential, in the future he could be a star right back in your side. But you see how they put 4 players on the transfer list, including the 2 players in their 30s. Sorry, Evans was the other player in the 30s. He's a cam here, and also Brett Pittman as well. And that's the first thing I'd recommend doing with Portsmouth when you take over at Fratton Park as well. Start selling some players from their team and looking to reinvest the cash after you've made the sales. So scout your players first. Put your scouts on some really good young talent. I'll show you what players I opted to sign in this episode soon, and sell the players whilst you're scouting for some younger replacement for the guys you will be selling on from this Portsmouth team. And you know, Portsmouth, real briefly as well, before we dive into the signings, they'd be a great team to do a career with. In fact, they're one of the most used RTG teams in English football because they're in League One, but they've got a real stadium in Fratton Park. It's very atmospheric. They've got a strong rivalry of a Premier League side, Southampton, right now. They've got 3 kits in the game. The fur kit is very nice. It's got some Harchester United throwback with the purple kit, and yeah, they're a really fun career mode team to do in this year's FIFA. Again, with a real stadium in League One, that's a real rarity, and they're a great team to manage, no doubt about it. But still, for new signings with Portsmouth, after we made some sales there, I did decide to go after some young talent, and the first position I'd recommend for a Pompey career mode is the right back role. 3 names on the shortlist here, 2 from Liverpool and 1 from West Bromwich Albion. Nathan Ferguson is the highest rated of the 3 at 68 overall, but either Nico Williams or Hover would be 2 excellent additions to your Portsmouth side. All 3 of these players are 18 years old, and I opted to go with Nico Williams. He's 62 rated, so the lowest rated of the 3, but this kid has got 84 potential, so grows to become a very good right back in the future, and you can get him for his valuation, which is £575,000. High medium work rates, very quick off the mark as well. Good pace on the youngster already, and whilst he might be 1 rating lower than your current first choice right back Bolton, you know this guy, 6 years younger, has got far more potential and is the one you'll want to start, because come the end of the season he'll certainly be higher rated than Bolton in your team. So Nico Williams was my first target to bring in for a Portsmouth career mode, but either Hover or of course Nathan Ferguson will be good as well. Ethan Laird from Manchester United is another one, but sadly in the first first season. You can't get him, as it says he's just joined the club, which isn't true, but that's what the games say. And also as well, for other new targets with Portsmouth, I wanted to get a centre-back after this, and the number one recommendation I would have is this guy. He's my sole target for the centre-back role. It's Eric Garcia of Manchester City. You will pay a pretty penny to get the Spaniard in, but he's one of the best young centre-backs in the game that's under the age of 20 years old. He's only 18 years old, but he starts off 68 rated. You can get him for around his valuation. We paid 1.65 mil to get him, but at 18 years old, this guy's got 85 potential. So becomes an absolutely amazing centre-back in world football when it's all said and done. And at 68 rated as well, growing 17 ratings with medium-high work rates, he'll go right into your first 11 and improve your back four. So once I've signed Nico Williams, I would recommend picking up Eric Garcia. Again, just 18 years old. He's 2 ratings higher than Burgess, and yet he's 9 years younger as well. He and Nico Williams, both teenage talents sliding into your back four. They make the defence stronger and also younger and really bright for the future as well. But for other signings with Portsmouth, I did decide to go after a backup striker as well. Of course, they've got John Marquise, formerly of Millwall, of course. He's always been a reputable, consistent goal scorer, pretty much wherever he's been. But I would recommend a new backup striker for Portsmouth. Of course, you're going to sell Brett Pittman in the first season, and you will want a second/third choice that's young and has good potential. There are 2 Irish strikers I'd recommend, Troy Parrott of Spurs, and also this guy who I opted to go for. It's Adam Ida of Norwich City. You can get this guy for under his valuation, which is £1 million. We paid 900k to get him, and this guy's a fantastic young striker in career mode. He's 6'3", so very, very tall, but also his key stats are acceleration and sprint speed, both 76. So this guy's got pace and height as well. So he's going to be a great striker when he's peaking with 84 potential. You'll probably have Marquis starting in your Portsmouth team to begin with, but off the bench with height and pace and high medium work rate, this kid will be a great impact sub. And again, at just 18 years old, 3 ratings lower than Marquis, but 9 years younger with 84 potential. So 3 really good 18-year-olds coming into the Portsmouth side here. Garcia with 85 potential, and Nico Williams and Adam Ida with 84 potential each. And the final signing I tried to pull off with Portsmouth was a new central base player in the midfield, either Billy Gilmore or Felix Mecha of Manchester City, and either of these talents will be amazing. Unfortunately, I'd spent a bit too much money to get hold of Billy Gilmore. Frank Lampard was not willing to play fair and negotiate with me despite how much I was willing to give him in terms of a sell-on clause. So the Scot, unfortunately, who's got great potential, I believe his potential is 86. I couldn't afford him in the first transfer window, but with a Mecha with Manchester City, I negotiated with Pep Guardiola, gave him a 24% sell-on clause and £550,000 as a transfer fee as well. So 125 grand under his valuation with an absolutely massive sell-on clause. Almost a quarter of his next sale will be going to Manchester City, but Mecha is a great young talent. He's only 18 years old, 63 rated with 83 potential. So he grows 20 ratings in the game. Our dynamic potential on player training as well. There's no reason why you can't get this guy into the mid to high 80s for his overall as well. As you'll see in the top left, this was very nervy indeed. I was desperate to get a Mecha in, and he had to take a pay cut in order to come here, and we basically had no money left over after I signed him on a £4 grand a week 5-year deal. I don't think I've ever done a Who to Sign For episode where I've spent almost every single penny, but that was the case with Portsmouth. We had £209 remaining in our budget come the end of the transfer window. Almost every single penny was used in signing these 4 players. When you look at the talents we brought in, every single one of them is 18 years old. So young. And Garcia from Manchester City with 85 potential, and Mecha with 83 potential. Both of these Man City kids, fantastic young talents out of the academy. And then, of course, Nico Williams from Liverpool with 84 potential at right back, and Adam Idah also with 84 potential as a backup striker. We've made this Portsmouth side younger, and it looks fantastic for the future. And whilst you might look at the starting overalls of these 4 players and think, hang on a minute, they're barely good enough to go into the first 11. Only Garcia is technically an improvement in terms of overall rating. These guys aren't going to be in the 60s for very long. Not before long they'll be in the 70s, and they're well on their way to get into the 80s as well. With Portsmouth, this is not a 1 or 2 season career mode at Fratton Park. This is a long-term project where you'll be on the South Coast for around 6 to 7 seasons, and therefore in the first season, it's all about laying down the groundwork. We sell 4 players for 1.56 mil, but again, they're in their late 20s or early 30s in the case of Pittman and Evans as well. And the 4 signings we made for £3.6 million were Nico Williams, Felix Mmecha, Eric Garcia and Adam Idah, all 4 young 18-year-old talents from the Premier League. So it's a project here at Portsmouth. We're laying down the groundwork and bringing in some fantastic young talent from the top tier. But the question was, could this Portsmouth team hit their objectives in the first season and the youthful side lead them to success? Well, as you could see, we did indeed hit our League One objective of gaining automatic promotion. Only just. We just pipped Bolton Wanderers to second place in the table by 2 points. We actually won 1 game fewer than Bolton, but as you can see, didn't lose as many games as they did, with 94 points in the end, finishing a whopping 13 points behind the eventual League One winners Sunderland. Not a real surprise though. You'll notice in this year's career mode, Sunderland pretty much always win League One in the first season because they are the highest rated team in the third tier English football. But either way, second place, we hit our objective of getting promotion automatically. We also reached the leasing.com trophy final as well for losing to Rotherham in the final. So there was almost silverware in the cabinet come the end of the first season there, losing to Rotherham in the final of that competition. Of course, that's a competition where only League One and League Two teams go into it. As for the Carabao Cup, this doesn't count towards our objectives. We did manage to reach the round of 16, so pretty impressive in the first season there, reaching the last 16 in the Carabao Cup. Ian doesn't count towards the objective, getting knocked out by Wolves. No shame in that, in reaching the round of 16. But as for the FA Cup, unfortunately, of course, as we know, they're taking on Arsenal in tonight's clash in the last 16. We were actually knocked out in the round of 64 in the third round of the FA Cup. So we were 1 round shy of where the board asked us to get to, but we were actually knocked out in the end by Watford at Fratton Park by 3-0. So no shame in losing to a Premier League side who, of course, as we know this season, are the only team to beat Liverpool in the Premier League, beating, of course, the Champions League winners last season. So no shame in getting knocked out by a Premier League side, but it still does technically count as a failure in the Cup objective. But really, that's just unlucky. That's just bad luck there. You know, the luck of the Cup draw, sometimes you get easy Cup draws and you can make it through pretty comfortably against lower league opposition. Sometimes, right from the get-go, you're paired against one of the big boys in England, and in this case that was unfortunately what it was. We got paired against Watford, and that's why we were knocked out by a Premier League side. So no shame in that. Technically it is still a failure, but losing to a Premier League side, you can't really complain about that one, can you? But regardless, we did get promoted automatically. That was the most important thing. And when you take a look at how the players got on in the first season as well, again, Portsmouth team is so young, and therefore we saw tons of progression from our young stars here, including the 4 players that we signed. Eric Garcia had a very solid season here at Fratton Park here from Manchester City. Grew his valuation by 92%, growing 2 ratings and keeping 11 clean sheets in 37 games in all competitions. The surprising thing though was the other 3 signings I made: Nico Williams, Adam Idah, and also Felix Mmecha as well. These 3 barely played in the first season. I don't know what the AI manager was doing here, but Williams still grew 3 ratings in the first season, so very nice to see. But he only played 7 games in the first season. God knows why. I can only imagine he had a long-term injury at some point. And that was the same with the case of Mmecha and also Adam Idah as well. Mmecha in the first season, to be fair, Mmecha played quite a few times. He got 22 appearances, but still, it's less than half the games in League One. 22 games, scoring once in League One and getting 3 assists as well. So he did play quite a few times, to be fair, Mmecha, but still less than half the games. Bit disappointing, but still managed to grow 3 ratings in the first season, so very nice to see. And Adam Idah, as you'll see, like Nico Williams, he barely played in the first season, only 9 games, but still grew 3 ratings, and that was the most important thing. So Idah grew 3 ratings, Mmecha grew 3 ratings, Williams grew 3 ratings, and Garcia grew 2 ratings. Great to see all 4 of our players, if not getting that much first team football as a collective group, still grew very nicely in the first season. season. And again, that's what your first season at Fratton Park is all about. Forget the cup, don't worry about it. Just get yourself promoted to the championship and bring in those young players. And again, this is a project at Fratton Park, and you are well on your way to becoming a Premier League side once again. It was not too long ago, remember, when Portsmouth were FA Cup winners against Cardiff City in the final, and finalists a few years later against Chelsea, back in the days with Peter Crouch and Nico Kranjčar and Jermaine Defoe and Ben Charney as well. Maybe Portsmouth are getting back to those days. But that was today's episode of Career Mode, guys. So big thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed it, and if you enjoyed today's episode, then please drop a like. Much love to you all. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you for the next episode of Who to Sign For very soon.